Hi. I have been doing a lot of research and came across this on Christian History Institute, and there's so much to it. I wanted to actually make a video about it and go through it, reading the points in history about Christian. This is a selective chronological listing, and you can pause and read if you would like. I'm not going to read it at all. I'm just going to start with the age of Jesus and the apostles. So in the year 30, the crucifixion of Jesus and the Pentecost. Year 35, Stephen martyred, Paul converted. 46, Paul begins missionary journeys. 48, Council of Jerusalem. 57, Paul's letter to the Romans. The year 64, fire to Rome, Nero launches persecutions. Year 65, Peter and Paul executed. The age of early Christianity. Year 70, destruction of Jerusalem by Titus. 110, Ignatius of Antioch martyred. 150, Justin, martyr, dedicates his first apology. 155 AD, Polycarp martyred. 172, Montanist movement begins. 180, Irenaeus writes against heresies. 196, Tertullian begins writing. 215, Origen begins writing. 230, earliest known public churches were built. The year 248 AD, Cyprian elected Bishop of Carthage. 250, Decius orders empire-wide persecution. In the year 270, Anthony takes up life of solitude. 303, great persecution begins under Diocletian. The age of Christian empire. 312 AD, conversion of Constantine. 312, Donatist schism begins. 313, Edict of Milan. 323, Eusebius completes ecclesiastical history. 325, First Council of Nicaea. 341, Ulfilas, translator of Gothic Bible, becomes bishop. 358, Basil the Great founds monastic community. 367, Athanasius' letter defines New Testament canon. 381, Christianity made state religion of Roman Empire. 381, First Council of Constantinople. 386, Augustine converts to Christianity. 390, Ambrose defies emperor. 398, Chrysostom consecrated Bishop of Constantinople. The year 405, Jerome completes the Vulgate. 410, Rome sacks the Visigoths. 431, Council of Ephesus. 432, Patrick begins mission to Ireland. 440, Leo the Great consecrated Bishop of Rome. 445, Valentinian edict strengthens primacy of Rome. 451, Council of Chalcedon. 500, Dionysius the Pseudo-Areopagite writes. Okay, and then 524, Boethius completes Consolation of Philosophy. 529, Justin publishes his legal code. 540, Benedict writes his monastic rule. 563, Columba establishes mission community in Iona. Then we come to the Christian Middle Ages, where in excuse me, the year 590, Gregory the Great is elected Pope. 597, Ethelbert of Kent is converted. 622, Muhammad Hegira, birth of Islam. 663, Synod of Whitby. 698, Lindisfarne Gospels. 716, Boniface begins mission to the Germans. 726, controversy over icons begins in Eastern Church. 733, Bede's Ecclesiastical History published. 732, Battle of Tours. 750, Donation of Constantine, written about at this time. 754, Pepin III's donation helps found papal states. 781, Alcuin becomes royal advisor to Charles. 787, Second Council of Nicaea settles icon controversy. 800, Charlemagne crowned Holy Roman Emperor. 843, Treaty of Verdun divides Carolingian Empire. 861, East-West conflict over Photius begins. 862, Cyril and Methodius begin missions to Slavs. 909, monastery at Cluny is founded. 988, Christianization of Russia. 1054, East-West split. 1077, Emperor submits to Pope over investiture. 1093, Anselm becomes Archbishop of Canterbury. 1095, First Crusade launched by Council of Clermont. 1115, Bernard founds monastery at Clairvaux. 1122, Concordat of Worms ends investiture controversy. 1141, Hildegard of Bingen begins writing. 1150, Universities of Paris and Oxford are founded. 1173, Waldensian movement begins. 1208, Francis of Assisi renounces wealth. 1215, Magna Carta. 1215, Innocent III assembles Fourth Lateran Council. 1220, Dominican order established. 1232, Gregory the ninth appoints first inquisitors. 1272, Thomas Aquinas, Summa Theologiae. 1302, Unum Sanctum proclaims papal supremacy. 1309, papacy begins, Babylonian exile of Avignon. 1321, Dante completes Divine Comedy. 1370, Catherine of Siena begins her letters. 1373, Julian of Norwich receives her revelations. 1378, Papal Schism begins. 1380, Wycliffe supervises English Bible translation. 1414, Council of Constance begins. 1413, Huss is burned at the stake. 1418, Thomas à Kempis writes The Imitation of Christ. 1431, Joan of Arc is burned at the stake. 1453, Constantinople falls. End of Eastern Roman Empire. 1456, Gutenberg produces first printed Bible. 1479, establishment of Spanish Inquisition. 1488, first complete Hebrew Old Testament. 1497, Savonarola excommunicated. 1506, work begins on New St. Peter's in Rome. 1512, Michelangelo 1512, Michelangelo completes Sistine Chapel frescoes. 1516, Erasmus publishes Greek New Testament. Then we're into the Age of Reformation, and we're 8 minutes into this video. Incredible. So, 1517, Luther posts his 95 theses. 1518, Ulrich Zwingli comes to Zurich. 1521, Diet of Worms. 1524, the Peasants' Revolt erupts. 1525, Tyndale's New Testament is published. 1525, Anabaptist movement begins. 1527, Scheidelheim Confession of Faith. 1529, Colloquy of Marburg. 1530, Augsburg Confession. 1534, Act of Supremacy. Henry VIII heads the English Church. 1536, Calvin publishes first edition of Institutes. 1536, Mino Simmons baptized as Anabaptist. Interesting how all that happened really quickly there, huh? 1540, Loyola gains approval for Society of Jesus. 1545, Council of Trent begins. 1549, Book of Common Prayer released. 1549, Xavier begins mission to Japan. 1555, Peace of Augsburg. 1555, Latimer and Ridley burned at the stake. 1559, John Knox makes final return to Scotland. 1563, first text of 39 articles issued. 1563, Fox's Book of Martyrs is published. 1565, Teresa of Avila writes The Way of Perfection. 1572, St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre. 1577, Formula of Concord. 1582, Ricci and Ruggieri begin mission in China. 1589, Moscow becomes independent patriarchate. 1598, Edict of Nantes, which was revoked evidently in 1685. 1609, Smith baptizes self and First Baptists. Wasn't okay? The Anabaptists were before the First Baptists. Okay. 1611, King James Version of the Bible is published. 1618, Synod of Dort begins. 1618, 30 Years' War begins. 1620, Mayflower Compact drafted. 1633, Galileo forced to recant his theories. 1636, Harvard College is founded. 1636, Roger Williams founds Providence, Rhode Island. 1647, George Fox begins to preach. 1446, Westminster Confession drafted. 1648, Peace of Westphalia ends. 30 Years' War. Then we have the Age of Reason and Revival. 1649, Cambridge Platform. 1653, Cromwell named Lord Protector. 1654, Pascal has definitive conversion experience. 1667, Milton's Paradise Lost. 1668, Rembrandt paints Return of the Prodigal Son. 1675, Spencer Pia Desideria advances Pietism. 1678, Bunyan writes The Pilgrim's Progress. 1682, Penn founds Pennsylvania. 1687, Newton publishes Principia Mathematica. 1689, Toleration Act in England. 1707, Bach publishes first work. 1707, Watts publishes Hymns and Spiritual Songs. 1726, Ethan Edwards becomes, pastor of Northampton. 1732, first Moravian monasteries. 1735, George Whitefield converted. 1738, John and Charles Wesley's evangelical conversions. 1740, Great Awakening peaks. 1742, first production of Handel's Messiah. 1759, Voltaire's Candide. 1771, Francis Asbury sent to America. 1773, Jesuits suppressed until 1814. 1779, Newton and Cowper publish Only Hymns. 1780, Robert Raikes begins his Sunday school. 1781, Kant publishes Critique of Pure Reason. Now we're on to the Age of Progress. Although, I kind of feel like Christianity is smuggling in some of the credit for some of these things, and that other things should be in here that aren't, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just tired. Okay, the Age of Progress. 1789, French Revolution begins. 1789, Bill of Rights. See, what is... I don't know. Smuggling it in again, I guess. But 1793, William Carey sails for India. What does that have to do with Christianity? I don't understand why they're taking credit for that. Or the Bill of Rights. But 1793, Festival of Reason. Dechristianization of France. So they're... Oh, I guess... The dechristianization of France. I guess this is just a broad history of things, the main things that have happened in Christianity. But again, what does Bill of Rights and the French Revolution have to do with Christianity? 1799, Schleiermacher publishes Lectures on Religion. 1801, Cordat between Napoleon and Pius VII. 1804, British and Foreign Bible Society forms. 1806, Samuel Mills leads Haystack Prayer Meeting. 1807, Wilberforce leads abolition of slave trade. Again, what does that have to do with Christianity? Are you trying to say that Christianity is the main driving force behind the abolition of the slave trade? Really? Alright. 1810, American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions. What does that have to do with... 1811, Campbell's begins Restoration Movement. 1812, Adoniram Judson begins mission trip. 1816, Richard Allen elected Bishop of New AME Church. 1817, Elizabeth Fry organizes relief in Newgate Prison. 1819, Channing issues Unitarian Christianity. 1827, J. N. Darby founds the Plymouth Brethren. 1833, John Keble's sermon launches Oxford Movement. 1834, Mueller opens Scriptural Knowledge Institute. 1835, Finney's Lectures on Revivals. 1840, Livingstone sails for Africa. 1844, First Adventist Churches formed. 1844, Kierkegaard writes Philosophical Fragments. 1845, John Henry Newman becomes Roman Catholic. 1845, Phoebe Palmer writes The Way of Holiness. 1848, Marx publishes Communist Manifesto. Again, what does that have to do with Christianity? 1851, Harriet Beecher Stowe releases Uncle Tom's Cabin. I haven't read it, but I've heard a lot about it my whole life. Does that have an overarching Christian theme or something? Because I don't know how they can take credit for that. 1854, Immaculate Conception made dogma. 1854, Spurgeon becomes pastor of New Park St. Church. 1855, D.L. Moody is converted. 1857, Prayer Meeting Revival begins in New York. 1859, Darwin publishes On the Origin of Species. I keep singing the same tune here. What does that have to do with Christianity? 1859, Japan reopens to foreign missionaries. 1860s, U.S. Civil War begins. Christianity again. 1864, Syllabus of Errors issued by Pope Pius IX. 1865, J. Hudson Taylor founds China Inland Mission. 1870, the First Vatican Council declares papal infallibility. Oh, isn't that funny? 1878, William and Catherine Booth founds Salvation Army. 1879, Francis Willard becomes president of WCTU. 1880, Abram Kuyper starts Free University. 1885, Berlin Congress spurs African independent churches. 1885, Wellhausen documentary hypothesis. 1886, student volunteer movement begins. 1895, Freud publishes first work on psychoanalysis. 1896, Billy Sunday begins leading revivals. 1901, speaking in tongues at Pyram's Bible School. 1906, Azusa Street Revival. 1906, Schweitzer's Quest of the Historical Jesus. 1908, Federal Council of Churches forms. 1910, International Missionary Conference begins. 1910, Fundamentals begin to be published. 1912, Social Creed of the Churches is adopted. The Age of Ideologies becomes evidently after World War I begins. 1919, Karl Barth writes Commentary on Romans. 1924, first Christian radio broadcasts. 1931, C.S. Lewis comes to faith in Christ. 1934, Barmen Declaration. 1934, Wycliffe Bible Translators founded. 1938, Kristallnacht accelerates Holocaust. 1939, World War II begins. 1940, first Christian TV broadcast. 1941, Bultmann calls for demythalization. 1941, Niebuhr's Nature and Destiny of Man. 1942, National Association of Evangelicals forms. 1945, atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. 1947, Dead Sea Scrolls discovered. 1948, World Council of Churches organized. 1949, Los Angeles Crusade catapults Billy Graham. 1950, missionaries forced to leave China. 1950, Assumption of Mary made dogma. 1950, Mother Teresa founds Missionaries of Charity. 1951, Bonhoeffer's letters and papers from prison. 1960, Bennett resigns. Charismatic renewal advances. 1962, Vatican opens. 1963, King leads March on Washington. 1966, Chinese Cultural Revolution. 1968, Medellin Conference advances liberation technology. 1974, Lausanne Congress on World Evangelization. 1979, John Paul II's first visit to Poland. 1985, Gorbachev, General Secretary of Soviet Communist Party. So there, clear up until the 80s, which I don't know what Gorbachev becoming the general secretary to the Soviet Communist Party has to do with Christianity, but there it is on this website that it has taken me nearly 20 minutes to read through the important events in Christian history according to Christian History Institute. Again, I'm doing some research, so I just thought it was too much and too interesting and peppered with too many other things to just bypass. So there's your 20-minute video of me reading things. Hopefully I didn't botch it too badly, but that is what it is. I'm not editing it. There you go. Hope you enjoy. Bye-bye.